To begin with, I'm going to make the legs for my clay creature. So I'm going to get some clay. So that you've got to guesstimate really the amount of clay that you want to make the legs. I think that might be enough. If I split that into 2 equal parts like this, and then if I start rolling that or turn that into a round ball, and what I want to do is roll it into like a sausage shape, really like this. So it's sort of short and stumpy and fat, so that it can take the weight of that much clay. Okay, it can't be too thin. If it's too thin, it's not going to hold the weight of the clay. So if I've done one very quickly, remember, the longer you hold the clay, the more it dries, the quicker it dries. So we want to work quite quickly, not hold the clay for too long. Make sure both legs are the same sort of size, at least the same height, so that it can stand like that. Okay, so that's basically the legs. Over the top of the legs we just need to tap so that they go flat like this, and then to draw out those, tease out the feet, what I do is I hold the clay like this and I just pull on the clay at the bottom of the leg so that we've got like a foot shape, you see, and then I can just make the leg a little bit thinner so I've got toes and a bit of a foot. I don't want to make it too long, I want to keep the base quite flat. Just really quickly like that. You can see that from the side, it's got a bit of a foot there, and do the same. I'm going to use the other end of this. Then just sort of squeeze, push with your thumb at the bottom, pull with the fingers, and just tease out something that looks like a bit of a foot, a bit like an elephant foot really, so that it's not too delicate, so it doesn't break. Make sure they're both of a similar length, which they are, and that's okay for now really. Again, they need to stand, so you need to tap it so that they're both flat, and we can always keep manipulating the clay to get the shape of the feet like that. Now to make them look like my drawing, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of 4 toes. So if I draw with my modelling tool, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, those are my sort of toes, so I can score and scratch into there. Just a little bit more to bring out those toes, and then I can manipulate those a little bit more if I wanted to. There you go. That's essentially, very quickly, for the sake of the video, how to make the toes look like toes. And in my case I've only got 4, because that's what I want. You can have more if you wanted to. There you go. So don't forget that we start by making a coil. So a piece of rolled clay is called a coil. It could be thick, it could be thin. In this case they're quite thick and short. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach those legs to the clay ball that we made before. Okay, so I'm going to decide where these are going to go. Maybe on this flat part here. going to go roughly about here, and I'm going to join that on there. So once I know where that's going to go, what I need to do is when we're gluing pieces of clay together, we need to score and scratch and slip to glue pieces of clay together. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I know that the leg is going to go roughly about here. So I'm going to score and scratch. Just rough up the clay. Now actually roughing up the clay increases the surface area of the clay. So there's more surface for the glue to stick to, and therefore will hold more glue, and the more glue that's there, the better the strength of the join. So I know that that's the top of the leg there, and that's going to go on here, like so. Okay, you can see the excess slip has just oozed out of where that leg is, but that's okay. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do some blending. Okay, now because the clay is quite thick, I don't need to add any pieces of coil to this, but I'm going to make this really strong by making sure that I blend the join together. So need both hands to turn and rotate. And that's going to be a really, really strong join on those legs there. Okay, it's a bit messy, and all you're going to do that with your fingers is just tidy that up. Like so. And the finishing can come a little bit later, but that's how I've joined one leg onto there now. So I already made a start on the second leg, pretty much the same as the first one. I'm just finishing off, touching the surfaces down to make it smooth. Again, rotating using both hands, using my fingers just to smooth it off. As you can see, not quite sure whether this is going to stand, so the only way to do that is to try it and then manipulate the legs. Tap it down and it should stand. It should have balance. And if it doesn't, you just need to manipulate the legs, making sure that the mass of the round ball actually is on the centre of gravity, which is right down the middle, like this. If it's leaning over that way, it's going to fall. If it's leaning that way, it's going to fall. So centre of gravity is really important, and it should stand. If it doesn't, a little bit of manipulation to make it stand, like that. And there we have the beginnings of my clay monster. So to move on to the arms, again, similar process. I know that the arms are a lot smaller than the legs. If you look at the design, I need a smaller amount of clay, probably about that much, and similarly for the second one. Similar amounts of clay. Again, just roll it into a round ball and then maybe a coil, like so. Now I know that it needs to wrap around the body, so I've got to make it a little bit thinner where it's going to attach to the body, or the head in this case. It's going to tap it into shape. So I've got something like a bit of a water droplet or a teardrop shape. And then this flat bit here is where I'm going to stick that to the body, like so. And that's going to make my arm. Okay, so again, remember, when we're gluing things together, we've got to score, scratch, slip in order to glue pieces of clay together. So I need to work out where my arm is going to go. Maybe a bit too high. Somewhere around here. So I know where that's going to go. I need to use both hands. I'm going to score, scratch and slip. Plenty of slip on there. And then gently, remembering where to place it, press. so, manipulating it. And then again, to make sure that the arm doesn't fall off, blend it using the modelling tool. Doesn't matter if it looks messy at this stage. You can always tidy it up. And there's one. Do the same with the second one. Similar. Pull it and squeeze it at one end to make like a teardrop shape. Really quickly. Again, don't hold it, don't handle it too long. Work out where it's going to go. Remember where it's going to go. Score, scratch, slip. Remember, score, scratching and slipping increases surface area, therefore it holds more glue. And makes the join a lot stronger, so the arms features don't fall off. Then blend into the body, so the arm looks like it's growing out of the body, isn't just stuck on. And also it makes it stronger. So once it's there, you can see I made one arm a little bit too big, but it doesn't matter. It's just a bit of a monster and a creature. So I'm just going to rub the clay back a little bit to make it look a little bit smaller. I can scrape a bit off with my fingers. No big problem. Like so. And I want it to have 3 fingers on each hand, so I'm just going to, like I did with the feet, use my modelling tool to indent and impress. There's 2 key words there, indent and impress, to create the fingers, like so. And all being well, now can you see how it's not balancing? Look, it's falling over. That's because the centre of gravity now is moved over because there's more weight on this side of the circle. So I have to make some adjustments to balance. Look, it's falling over. So I need to just tap it gently and lean the character back a little bit so that the centre of gravity is going down the legs this way. And you'll find now, with a little bit of manipulation, that he stands again. Okay, because obviously you've got more weight on this side, less weight at the back, so you've got to counterbalance that just by leaning him back a bit, and he stands like so. So now I'm going to move on to making the coils. Okay, the coil. So the coil in this case, well, actually no, it's not a coil, is it? That's a mistake. It's called a cone. Well, it starts as a coil, okay, but the shape I'm going to make is a, just write that down, coil. It's become a cone, which is thinner at the top. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to make 5 pieces of clay, pinch them off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now they're all slightly different sizes. I can always pinch a little bit off. I'm going to start with the biggest one here. Roll it in the palm of my hand, and then roll it into a coil. Remember, rolled clay is a coil. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to roll it between my fingers and my thumbs on one end of the coil to make it thinner, and then I can squeeze it. Now it's beginning to dry a little bit, this clay, because it's warm today. I can roll it a bit more. There's one. Do the same with the others. So I've already made a few more, and I've just realised that actually there's another way of making those cones. If you roll it in your hand like that, in the palm of your hand, and then when you're trying to make your coil, you can actually just rub one end of that coil to get it thinner at the other end to get a nice cone shape fairly easily. So we want to make them flat, we've got to tap them down on the table, make them flat so that they will stick to the head. I'm going to just check the sizes of the cones. They're all pretty much the same size, so that's good. So remember, we have to score, scratch and slip to glue pieces of clay together. So I'm going to work out the middle one. It's going to go about here, like so. So score, scratch, slip. Gently just press. Now I want these to look like they're sitting on top of the head, so I don't really want to blend those, but I could if I wanted to make sure that they are nice and firm, firmly attached to the head. Quickly just blend that together so that we know it's not going to fall off. Smooth it off. The tips of my fingers. I'm going to pause it there while I do the others. So you can see I've attached the other cones to the head. I haven't blended them all together. I may just blend the front to make sure that they are stuck and attached well. Not too bothered about the surface just yet. It's something that I would go back to later to make sure that it's nice and smooth later on before letting it dry. Okay, so there you go. Now I have a problem with the balance again, because now I've got clay at the other end. It's not quite balancing, okay, because in the making process of the cones things have changed a bit, so I've got to then tap, rebalance, make sure my little monster stands. Like so. Okay. So the next thing will be for me to make the eyes. Okay, now I'm going to add the eyes. I'm going to make the eyes out of clay by adding some clay. So I'm going to use this small amount of clay. I need 2 round spheres of clay, 2 round balls, like so. Now this time I'm going to flatten the clay just in my fingers like so, to create sort of oval shapes like that. Put him on there. Again, flatten with my fingers. Control the outer shape with the other fingers to get sort of 2 button shapes really. Now on my design I've got a flat line, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put those on the table, flatten them a little bit. Now flat, pressed or rolled clay is actually called a slab of clay. So flat, rolled, pressed clay is called a slab of clay. Now I don't have a word card for that, but a flat rolled piece of clay, a flat pressed piece of clay is called a slab. So there you go, I've got my 2 eye shapes. Can you see? So again, I'm going to glue those on, but I need to do some scoring. like so, and then just firmly press those into place. Again, not too worried about the surfaces or the edges just yet, as long as everything is stuck on properly. Just gently tap those in place. Like so. Now I've got two pieces of small bits of clay here, which I'm going to use for the eyeballs. So again, just roll them in my fingers, press them. Now because it's so small, I don't really need to score or scratch because it's so small. The scoring and scratching really makes the joints of bigger pieces much stronger. So these could just be pressed on with enough slip, just firm pressure without really squashing them too much. And now I'm going to do some impressing and indenting to create the little eyeball shape in the middle. So I'm just going to use my end of the brush. That will help to press it in to the rest of the eye shape, creating that expression. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the mouth. Okay, so to move on to the mouth, I'm going to use my pencil to very carefully just sketch out the outline of the mouth. Like so. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Then I'm going to use the same clay modelling tool, which is a bit like a knife really, and I'm going to very carefully cut that mouth shape out bit by bit, not trying to go all the way in too quickly, just go in bit by bit, because you don't want to ruin it all now. Now I've left the mouth until the very end. Okay, some people want to cut the mouth out too early, but I haven't cut the mouth out until the very end, because whilst the hollow ball has air trapped inside it, it's actually got strength. Okay, because air is atmospheric pressure, so it's giving me resistance. So as I'm working on it, it's not going to collapse on me. But as soon as I cut into it and let the air out, I am removing the atmospheric pressure that's trapped inside it. Okay, and thereby making this a little bit softer and more fragile. So leave it till the very end. Now I've made my mouth shape a little bit too sort of round, if you like, so I'm just going to make it more square looking by just squeezing and manipulating and touching that. Use my modelling tool just to carve away a bit more of the mouth from the inside edge to make it a little more square. I can pull a bit of that mouth. Looks quite angry now, I think. So I'm just put that back there. Now I'm going to use the clay that I carved out and took out to make the teeth. So again, I can draw the teeth onto here. In fact, I can just use that like so. And then I'm going to carve and cut that with the same modelling tool. Don't need lots and lots of different tools. You can use lots of different tools, but for this kind of work you really only need one. Okay, so I've got squares, and I can, if it's not long enough, I can make it a little bit longer, or a bit more narrow actually. Looks too square looking according to my design. So again, manipulate it into the tooth shape that I want. In fact, I think it might be too big, so I need to make that smaller. like so, and I might be able to use the other one for the bottom teeth. So again, indent or impress the line into there to suggest the middle of the teeth for this one as well. Like so. So again, I just need some slip on here. It's quite a delicate piece, I don't really need to score and slip that. And just push that onto there. And because it's quite small, it doesn't need a lot of glue, it just needs a bit of firmshire. Like this. Make sure it's flat where the glue is going to go, the slip. There you have that creature. Just going to draw a line here to make sure the edge of the mouth is clear. And that there is my clay monster. Okay, and just a quick recap there, that piece of flat clay is called a slab. Now you can roll it or you can press it with your hands. And drawing lines and features is called impressing or indenting into the clay using different tools. So I made the eyes with the end of the brush, the teeth and the fingers using just my normal clay modelling tool. That there is my clay monster. It's not quite finished, it just needs tidying up and smoothing down before I would let it dry out completely.